sports fans. This is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes here live tonight, ready to talk some 2026 Big 12 football conference rankings, preseason. We're ready to talk about how we think these teams are going to fare this season and where they're going to land at the end of the season. I got my man Post Game with me tonight. How you feeling this evening, Post Game?
Man, I feel marvelous. I'm excited to get on here with you once again, my brother, and talk this here college football. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad you was able to join tonight. Hopefully, SEC Sean will be able to jump back in. He jumped in for a second, but I think he might have had something he had to do real quick. So hopefully he'll join us here in a minute. What's your thoughts on the Big 12 conference? How do you see them ranking against the other Power Four conferences? And do you think they're going to make any moves to add any more teams in the near future?
Man, I sure hope not because me personally, I don't like all the movement as far as teams going into joining different conference. I'm a little old school in that way. I like the old style regional football. Let's meet up in the playoffs and see who do it best. But as far as the Big 12 conference, Rob, I mean, I don't think they're the best. They might be a little better than the ACC. They just might. I know Miami is the best team. When you talk about all both the conferences put together, there's definitely a few ACC teams that have a chance to make some noise this season. But as far as the Big 12, man, I think when you compare the power conferences, I think they're either third or fourth behind the SEC, Big Ten, and probably the ACC. But whether they're three or four or not, it's an extremely exciting league. I know they want to score a lot, some innovative offenses, Colorado getting the go offense and, some air raid offenses. I think about Oklahoma State. So the Big 12 can be a very exciting conference as we enter the 2026 season, Rob.
Yeah, when I think about this Big 12 conference, man, and when you look at the landscape of it, if they're going to try to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC, I think they're probably going to have to try to find some way to expand. I think there's some teams probably in both of those conferences too, the SEC and the Big Ten, that is, that might want to get out of those conferences because they probably will never win it, and then probably have them find themselves either in the ACC or the Big 12 with an opportunity to try to compete for a conference championship year in and year out. Because when you look at the landscape of the Big 12, the last couple of years, you've had a different conference champion. It wasn't like the days of older or a few years ago where Oklahoma, I think, ran 6 or 7 straight. Then you sprinkle in a couple of other teams. Here lately, since Oklahoma and Texas has been gone, it's been a different team every year. And we've had teams that we thought would be at the top fall to the middle of the pack, and teams that were at the bottom of the pack were coming to the middle and up to the top. So I think Nebraska is probably going to be looking for a home. There's murmuring out there about them possibly going back to the Big 12. I feel like Colorado wasn't going to be able to really compete in that Pac 12 when it was up and running, which it'll be back this year. I just feel like this conference has to do something in order to compete. Otherwise, it might be one of those situations where we end up getting 2 super conferences, and that's going to be one of the conferences that's going to dissolve. But right now in 2026, they're intact, 16 teams, and we're going to talk about those 16 teams and where we think they're going to rank going into the season and where we think they're going to rank at the end of the season. Anything else you want to add about the Big 12 conference before we get in to number 16 and where we place the number 16 team in this conference?
Nope, ready to go.
All right. Well, at number 16, the WTP Sports Dudes has the Colorado Buffaloes at number 16. Coach Prime and his boys We got them slated at 16. How do you feel about this Colorado team? How did they go from a game away from making it to their conference championship 2 years ago to finding themselves in the basement of the WTP Sports Dudes 2026 college football ranking in their conference?
I don't know. It certainly wasn't because of my vote. But no, seriously, I see why they would come last, but I also see a case for them to make to finish a little higher. They definitely won't be winning the Big 12 conference this year, but I think they could be an exciting offense to watch. You think about the new offensive coordinator Coach Prime brought over. Uh the innovator of the go-go offense. It's a offense that they are banking on for my money. Because we know the defense isn't going to be up to par to make much noise in the Big 12 conference. But I can say that a lot of about a lot of defenses in the Big 12 conference. But they have zero returning starters on defense. So that's a little worrisome for me. Their freshman or their sophomore quarterback has all the talent in the world. They're going to be dependent on him heavily to get the job done. But one of the most underrated transfer portal stories was them getting Danny Scudero from San Jose State. This is a kid that led the nation in receiving last year, and he'll be in that slot for Colorado, and he's going to play a big part in that offense. Now, the different thing about that go-go offense, Rob, is they feature two running backs lined up in the backfield. They want to be up tempo. They want to implement some RPO. Like I said earlier, the slot is going to play a humongous part for that team's offense this season. So I expect Colorado to finish maybe 12th, 13th, not too far off from the 16th ranking, which I can see also, but I just think that offense is going to be a little bit better than what people think.
Yeah, I think this Colorado team has found themselves in a situation where they just haven't been able to get the right coaches with Coach Prime to really develop these players. They've been able to land some huge players out of the transfer portal and out of high school recruiting. They just haven't been able to have the coaches to develop those guys. And I think once Prime gets a couple of more years up under his belt, and he's able to get a couple of better meshing coaches, they might be a lot better in the near future. I think Brennan Marion is a wonderful addition to that staff. I really like that go-go offense. When he was at Texas for the year he was there, they were able to implement some of that two-back system, and it worked really well for Jonathan Brooks and Jaden Blue. So I think that once they get that thing going in the right direction, they're able to get some coaches on that staff to really help them develop some players. They'll be able to go and get some more of those group of five school players to start building their program up, because there's a lot of talented players in the group of five. In Colorado, not having a whole lot of money, will be able to go and draw some of those guys' attention, especially when you got a dynamic coach like Coach Prime, who is a motivator, who is a really good coach. He just needs some more time up under his belt too to be able to navigate the college system. But I think in time, Colorado can be back on the map. I just don't know how good they're going to be able to be as long as they're in Colorado, because a whole lot of players are not beating down their doors to get in that Colorado. So hopefully they do better than being in the basement. I think they're probably going to finish around 14, 15, 16, but I'm not expecting anything better than that, but I expect them to make some strides to get better over the next couple of years. Coming in at 15, we got the Kansas Jayhawks, a team that a few years ago We thought with Jalen Daniels was going to be able to win the Big 12. We thought they were going to be really, really good. A super experienced quarterback at that time 2 years ago, but they did not fare so well. They sort of dropped the ball on that season because I thought they would be really, really good. What do you think about this Kansas team? And is Kansas going to fall back into the basement like they were for many years in the Big 12?
Yeah, I believe so. I agree with you. I thought Jalen Daniels was going to be a monster last season. He was all right, but I thought he was going to lead that team to better fortunes. I do believe Kansas is going to be a bottom team in the Big 12 this year. They're putting their stock. They're putting a lot of their stock in the freshman quarterback Isaiah Marshall, who has no experience. He's going to be a true freshman on one of the least talented team in the Big 12. So I can see Kansas falling anywhere between 14 to 16. I like Colorado a little bit more than Kansas personally.
Yeah, this is right where I slotted on my sheet. This is right where I slotted Kansas, right at number 15. And I really felt like this. Oh my bad, my bad. You been in there hard. Thank you. I really felt like this Kansas team. They got a really good coach, man. I love their coach. I just feel like he's just at a place where you're not going to be able to compete money wise being at a basketball school when it comes to football. And I think they're going to go right back and be the bottom dwellers in this conference all over again. I feel like maybe had NIL and all of that had not come into play, they probably would have been able to continue some momentum. But I think they're going to be in the basement from here on out. I wish their coach probably would have got out while the getting was good. He did not. So he's going to probably find himself in the same position Matt Campbell was a few years ago when he probably should have left Iowa State, but he was able to bounce back, and now he's at Penn State. Hopefully, Kansas's coach can do the same thing in a couple of years because right now his stock isn't so high because his team hasn't been performing well. Let's bring our
They're
man Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10 into the discussion. We had number 16 Colorado and number 15 Kansas. Mossberg, what do you think about those two slots for those two teams?
Good evening, man. Appreciate y'all having me. It's good to see everybody as well. Post and yourself, the CEO, the man himself, as Post say, the living legend, and bending on that air, man. It's good to always see you. I like the fact I had Colorado at 13. Um, I had Cam Perry, seeing him coming in as a transfer, and Gideon Lampson. I think those two guys, one offensively, wide receiver is a big playmaker, and on the defensive side, linebacker and Gideon, I think they could be, pieces that can maybe elevate Colorado from being so much of that bottom team. And honestly, for me, seeing Prime go through what he's been going through as a coach in this last year since, the offseason, I think a lot of that has played an effect to where sometimes you can't be there and be that same guy you was when you came into the program them first few years with your son and those big transfers and recruits. So I mean, for Kansas, I agree with everything you said. I'm looking at them, they were 5-7 last year. Team people had them as a 7 or 8 win team. I'm not liking what I'm seeing coming into the season. I mean, people could say they can possibly be higher than 15, but for me personally, I don't think this Kansas team is going to get anybody really a run for their money. I think it's going to be a scruff McDuff, maybe a couple shootouts in that rivalry game we know at Kansas State. But outside of that, I'm not really giving them a big shot this year.
correction on myself. Isaiah Marshall is a redshirt sophomore with no playing experience.
All right, cool, cool, cool. Well, coming in at 14, we got UCF. What's your thoughts on UCF? I had UCF at the bottom on my board. I had them at number 16. Somehow Once we calculated them all, they find themselves at number 14 on our list. Mossberg, what do you think about UCF? And a couple of years ago, UCF was looking really, really good until they got into conference play and they started getting dog walked. What's your thoughts on UCF at number 14?
It's funny when you say some of the words you say. You said dog walk. You said it right. I think, for me, I just want to see what they do at the transfer portal. A lot of teams in the Big 12 have made some big moves, key positions, and they got a Barnett the third at the quarterback position who they think can elevate this program. So for me, I'm really looking to see what they do. Can they make that turnaround and get back to that winning side and those winning ways like they did, like you said just a few years ago, and get out of this dog house and not get dog walked in this Big 12 as we have been seeing. And we know they have the talent, but I had them at 9 on the respect of this quarterback, Barnett the third, seeing how he would fare. And I think with him being mobile and his ability to pass, I think he could actually turn the tide with this UCF program.
Yeah, I
What's
agree
your
with
thoughts,
you,
folks?
Moss. I agree with Mossberg. It's hard to have faith in the UCF team, but in the age of the transfer portal, man, you can go from night to day in the season. I do like Alonzo Barnett, and he transferred from James Madison, right?
I believe so. I didn't check the school. I do apologize for that, but
So,
big
so,
transfer.
so, so that means that he has playoff experience. How many quarterbacks in the Big 12 can say they have college football playoff experience? So
Yeah,
this could be one of those sneaky teams, or they're going to be right where we had them ranked at 14th.
yeah, agree.
Man, I see UCF. They're really now in a dilemma because now that this money is circulating, Miami is back looking like the Miami of old. I think Florida State still has its credibility because they have some really prominent coaches still on that staff. Florida is looking a little bit better. They've been able to retain some of their key players. And I think the fact that NIL is in business, and plus you got USF, who was also playing really, really well, was a couple of games short of making the college football playoffs last year. UCF finds themselves
Yeah.
in a serious dilemma because they are not able to get some of the guys that they normally would have gotten when those teams weren't faring so well, or because the money wasn't out there like it is now. I think UCF is going to have to find a way, much like I think Colorado is going to have to do, and find some of these players at some of these other Power Four schools that's not quite getting on the field as soon as they would like to. Get those guys on your squad, get them guys on the field, get them some playing experience. They might leave you by the time they're a junior or senior, but at least you're going to get some high quality guys that's playing in a conference that's really, it has some talent, but it's not overwhelming talent. And I think UCF is going to have to find a way to do that at some point. I think it's a good destination. It's a really nice university down there. I believe it's in
Yeah.
Tampa, Florida. It's a really nice area. And not that a whole lot of people flock there, but it's a lot to do in that area. So I think UCF has an opportunity to see some things, especially if Florida State doesn't pick it up. But they're going to have to figure out some kind of formula, man.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to find themselves at 14, 15, or 16 every year in this conference.
Yeah. And real quick before you get to the next team, just speaking of those three teams, when you look at conference wins last year, they were all at what, about 5 or less, and just conference wins within itself. So when you talk about this year and how much better the Big 12 has gotten, when you talk about some of the top tier teams and some of the changes we'll, possibly see in these rankings when we get into the teens, I think, and even higher, I think that's something as well to look at. So I think these teams definitely have to make a move now this year in 26, or we could be seeing a possible shutdown of some programs in a big way of them losing not just in the portal, but overall as a university in the seasons to come.
Yeah, if you throw West Virginia in this group with them, I think those was the bottom four teams last year. At the end of the season, I believe.
Yeah.
At number 13, we came up with Iowa State. According to everybody's list that they bought in, they came in at number 13. Post game, what do you think about this Iowa State team? They lost their coach, who also took a boatload of players with him. What do you think about this Iowa State team? And are they going to be an Iowa State team that we've seen year in and year out? They beat Iowa the last 2 years. Will they be able to duplicate some of that success that they had without Matt Campbell?
No. I was gonna
He
mention
said
that.
no.
I was gonna mention that exact fact that you stated, man. I mean, all they players is at Penn State. Um, I'm sure the new coach had to scramble and put together a roster, to take the field. So I expect this to be one of those transition years, one of those down years for Iowa State, who's been a really good program the last few years. So I expect them to be at the bottom of the Big 12 standings this season.
Man.
What's your thoughts on Iowa State, Mossberg?
The crazy thing is the best thing about Iowa State this year is that they'll be selling alcohol. So their fans will be able to at least get drunk while they seeing some slaughters that's going on this season. And I agree with you guys. When you lose that much respectively to Iowa State, I think, you know, it's a lot that you have to gain. It makes me think of teams that's lost not just their coach, but just went on to having players go to the NFL. That's a big loss. But you lose your coach, you lose those players. So you like in a rebuild. And for me, I'm actually watching Iowa State in Colorado because I got Colorado ranked ahead of Iowa State this season in my rankings, and I have Iowa State. It's going to be a shocker at the bottom of the Big 12.
Yeah, this is about where I had Iowa State on my list. I just really feel like whenever you lose your head coach, who's really the identity of their program, and then he takes, I think they lost 36 players in the
Yeah,
transfer portal. Now, it might have been all 36 with the Penn State, or at least 33 of them with the Penn State. So now you're in rebuild mode. I think the coach that they got from a group of five school might be able to come in there and bring some of his players and still have a level of camaraderie with those guys that already know their system and all that good stuff. But will they be good enough to topple some of those top tier teams? They're going to play Iowa again this year. That'll be a good measuring stick to see where this program is with this new coach. I just don't really feel like they're going to be there. They have some wonderful fans who really support this ball club, and I hope that they get it turned around in a year or two so they can be one of those teams in the Big 12 that we look at every year or looked at every year in the past and thought, listen, they will be in the top four every year because they're so gritty, so physical. And when you got to go and travel to Ames, Iowa, you know you're going to be in for a dogfight. And I hope that the new coach and the new players and staff can bring and keep Iowa State alive. They probably just won't be able to do it this year, losing
yeah,
so much production.
yeah. Just to think about them when we first started. I remember that first season of college football. Iowa State was a team. You know, we talked about them a lot, and now year and a half, 2 years later, they're going through a rebuild. You know, it's a lot that goes on in college football. So, this is something that I'm actually looking at. It's crazy to me that how the tide changes so fast when you think of how up a university could be, and like Iowa State being so physical, and now they're looking for some of the top tier talent to bring that swagger back. So that's going to be something to see as well for me with teams in the Big 12. Like I said, with me having Colorado above them, but overall, in college football, but this conference in particular, because there's been a lot to go on in this Big 12 in the offseason.
Yeah. At number 12, we got the Cincinnati Bearcats. Mossberg, we're going to start with you. What do you think about this Cincinnati Bearcat team? They fell around the bottom, the middle to the bottom of the pack last year. They started off really hot with Sorsby. We know all the issues Sorsby went through, and with his transfer into Texas Tech this year, and now he's out of football temporarily. What do you think about this Cincinnati team? And what do they need to do? Because maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they were in the 4-team college football playoffs.
Yeah,
Now they find themselves number 12 in our ranking, and they really could probably be even lower than that.
yeah.
What's your
You
thoughts on this team, and what do they need to do to get this thing turned around?
I think a Ginyard, the receiver back in the day when you think about Cincinnati and the times that they were good. I even think about Sauce. Cincinnati had what, quite a few players. I can't think of all of them, but to see what they going through, having Sorsby go through this leave, and now Sorsby's not playing through football. Another team that's trying to find an identity, I think, going into this year. I have them rated as low as we have them. So for me, it's who is Cincinnati? Will you come in and be a team that fights in this Big 12, or will you still have a Sorsby hangover? We're trying to see if Texas Tech, we'll get to them, about the Sorsby, but I mean, this is going to be something to see for me. Another team below 5 wins in the conference. They were respectively 7-6, above 500, but this is a big year for Cincinnati. They could possibly not win 5 or 6 games and be lower in the conference. So just a lot going on, like I said, with this Big 12 and another team I'm looking at to see what they really do this season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Moss. I could have had Cincinnati ranked last, and I thought about it, and I'm this JC French guy, the transfer from Georgia Southern and Memphis, is a little bit interesting. He has some good experience. Last year, he tossed 20 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and he ran for 315 yards and adds 6 more rushing touchdowns.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if Cincinnati's going to do anything in the Big 12, it's definitely going to be on the backs of their starting quarterback, J.C. French. So, other than that, man, I don't see Cincinnati doing much in the Big 12 this season.
The thing I can't understand about this Cincinnati team, man, and maybe I just don't see the whole picture, is you're in the state of Ohio, you're in the Midwest. I know you're competing against a lot of really, really good Big Ten teams in terms of going after 4 and 5 star recruits. But this area, when you look at Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Michigan. There's enough talent in those 4 states, 5 states alone that
Yeah.
you can find a group of players that can really bolster your program. I don't know what's going on there in Cincinnati, but there's a lot of really talented football players within those states that I think they probably should be focusing on. I'm not sure if what their formula is, but I feel like they could get all of those guys who don't end up at one of those states power school, like an Ohio State or Penn State or Notre Dame or Illinois. I think there's players that they could be getting, and they just don't seem to be getting those players, or maybe they don't have the coaches who are able to develop those players like they were doing when they had Wisconsin's coach there, Fickle, and maybe it was the coordinators that was leading them because Fickle isn't doing so well in in Wisconsin. But I
Yeah.
think Cincinnati has got to figure something out, man. Otherwise, they might need to fall back to the group of five and be competitive there because they're not faring so well in the Big 12. At number 11, we got Arizona State. An Arizona State team who I feel like has a really good up and coming football coach. I really like him. He lost his star quarterback to injury last year, and now he is at LSU. They made it to the college football playoffs 2 years ago. Took Texas to the brink. Should have actually beat Texas, but gave that game away. Maybe the referees helped them a little, helped Texas a little bit too. What do y'all think about this Arizona State team? We'll start with you post game. How do you feel about the direction of this program?
Yeah, I think the direction of the program is they're going to be on a year or two hiatus, in my opinion. A lot of it is going to have to do with Cutter Bowley and how good he can be, which I don't have a lot of faith in. But he probably fits the new he probably fits the new coach's system. That guy threw a lot of interceptions last season, but I mean, Arizona is in a rebuilding. Arizona State, excuse me, is in a rebuilding season, and I don't expect much from them out the Big 12.
I would say the same thing for me. I think Arizona straight rebuilding. When you like a lot of teams, like you think about Iowa State, now we talking about Arizona State had a chance to get to the national championship, beat Texas. A couple years later, they're rebuilding. It's a lot that they have to go through. They've lost a lot going through the draft these last few years as well. So I think for certain teams, when you come into the season, like Post said, what are they doing on the back end of this quarterback getting his reps to prepare for the season to not throw those picks? So for me, I'm looking at the same thing. What is Arizona State doing along with that coaching change? So it's a lot that for me personally, my opinion that I'm looking at for a lot of teams in the Big 12. We've talked about Cincinnati, Iowa State, UCF, Colorado, respectively, about Prime, but it's a lot that they're doing when the rebuild comes too. And then now Arizona State. So for me, it's a lot that I'm trying to see with some of these lower tier teams, but for some of the top teams, definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really feel like Arizona State was in a position to really capitalize off of their run to the college football playoffs that year. And of course, the injury bug hurt them with the wide receiver and then with their quarterback. But I really feel like this Arizona State team, they have a chance to capitalize on a lot of those group of five schools as well, who got a lot of players who are not making any money at the group of five school. You can throw them a couple of dollars and they will end up at your school. Plus, you're positioned really well on the West Coast where you can get good players from like a UTEP. You can get some good players from all of those areas, from a New Mexico State, from some of the California schools that can really help you out. Guys who have been in those systems for 2 or 3 years, who have been playing, they got some experience. All you now have to do is put maybe a little bit more weight on them, but those guys will be ready to play and can be gritty for you for 2 or 3 years. And I think, much like Cincinnati not taking advantage of the Midwest, I think Arizona State has to take advantage of the West Coast in that same way. And hopefully the coach that they got can do that, because I really like him as a coach, a really good up-and-coming guy. But he's going to probably fall in one of those Matt Campbell situations too if he doesn't continue to be successful. And right now at number 11, he needs to be closer to the top five in this conference in order for teams to really want to take a look at him. But I think he's a really good up-and-coming coach. Hopefully he can turn this thing around and get Arizona going in the right direction again. At number 10, we got the Baylor Bears. Mossberg, what's your thoughts on the Baylor Bears? They had a really good quarterback last year. Dave Aranda is probably on the hottest seat in the Big 12. What's your thoughts on Baylor?
I love talking about hot seats, and shout out to Robinson Sawyer Robinson, that is, and what he did last year. We felt really high on Baylor. I know that's one of Post guys, and shout out to him putting this on because he will put a show on for you. But overall, this Baylor team, it's a whirlwind for them. Coming into this season for me, I want to see what they're gonna do. I want to see that Baylor team with that dynamic offense, but that defense that's out when it need to be. I want to see them back in the Robert Griffin type era. respectively because we know what they could do. But I think if this coach, if he get too easy in these first couple weeks, his seat won't just be hot. His buyout will be fast, quick, and it'll be delivered ASAP, right in the locker room after that second or third week. So I think he definitely need to do something fast in a hurry. Hopefully he got 2 or 3 a days going for Baylor right now. And it's just tough to look at knowing the potential that we seen them as a playoff team possibly last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Baylor is really interesting to me. Um, I agree with Rob that their coach is probably on the hottest seat in the Big 12. So he took a gamble in the transfer portal. And that gamble is DJ Lagway. Now, the reason why I call him a gamble is his upside is still extremely high. I believe he was the number one quarterback out of high school the year he came out. The only question is this guy going to stay healthy? And can that Baylor offensive line keep him healthy? I have zero faith in their defense. Their defense got slaughtered last year and really wasted their quarterback's year because they couldn't stop a nosebleed. Sawyer Robertson, that is. But if DJ Lagway is able to stay healthy, I still believe he has all the talent in the world and he can get the job done. But that defense has got to be able to stop somebody. If they can't stop anybody, DJ Lagway can't stay healthy. It's going to be Heartbreak City.
Yeah, I think Dave Aranda is on his last leg here at Baylor. He came in as the head coach and ended up winning the Big 12 championship game over Oklahoma State that year, and he just hasn't had it since. I think they're going to be as good as DJ Lagway can take them because everything is going to be on DJ Lagway this year. Like you said, post game, their defense is probably not going to be that great. They'll be a little bit more experienced than probably they were last year, but I don't think they're going to be that great. He got to find a way to take advantage of that talent that's in the state of Texas and down south so that this Baylor team can be a little bit more competitive. You can't allow SMU and Texas Tech and TCU to get everything else that's left over from Texas and Texas A&M and Oklahoma. You got to find a way to get some of these players so that you can stay relevant. I still think he's a really good defensive minded coach. His three high safety look is really gives a lot of coaches some trouble, but he just don't have the personnel to run it like he did when he first got there. Hopefully Baylor can get this thing turned around. Right now we got them at 10. That's better than 16, but I don't really feel like that's going to do them any justice if they don't get a bowl bid or at least get the 7 wins. This might be Dave Aranda's last go around.
What's the percentage you say DJ Lagway is still healthy after week 5?
I feel like this with DJ Lagway. I think he understands his first 2 seasons. He has been banged up every season. I think he understands now how healthy he needs to be in order for him to be successful. I don't think he's going to put himself in harm's way. I think he's going to understand I got to get this ball out of my hand as quickly as possible. I can't take hits, and I can't avoid to run the football unless it's absolutely necessary because the way this team is going to go is based on DJ Lagway. And I think after 2 years in Florida, in his third year, I think he's going to be smart enough to understand that he has to stay upright and he can't afford to not be on that field. So I'm giving him at least an 85% chance that he's going to stay healthy all season. Or at least, as healthy as you can be playing in a 12-game season in football, period.
I respect that. Baylor, they do protect when they got a good quarterback, I say they do protect them. But I think, we seen the woes last year, like Post said. They had a great quarterback in Sawyer Robinson, and we seeing DJ Lagway come in. So that's going to be, I think, the key for him. If they could protect him, keep him healthy, I think we could definitely see Baylor at this 10th position, and who knows what else. It's the Big 12.
Yeah. At number 9, we got the bottom dweller in Oklahoma State, I think the last two seasons Oklahoma State has finished last or very near the last, the bottom. We got them at number 9 this year. We might as well call them the Oklahoma State North Texas Cowboys because North Texas coach comes over and he brings most of his boys with him. What's your thoughts on them post game? We're going to start with you. What's your thoughts on Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I think the style of offense that the new coach is bringing over from North Texas really suits the Big 12, and I think they're going to be able to compete and be competitive this year. Now they probably won't win a Big 12, but my goodness, I like this team. At least their offense. I think every single guy that starts, all 22 guys except for two, are transfer guys. But that shouldn't be that much of a big deal, seeing as though they all played at North Texas together last season. I like Drew Mestamaker and this air raid offense, man. I think he's going to put up big numbers in the Big 12. It suits him big time. And then you talk about Hawkins at running back, a guy who's physical and is going to have a lot of success in the Big 12 as well. They had one of the best receivers in the country last year at North Texas. Now at Oklahoma State in the Big 12. So I look for Drew Mestamaker to have a really good year, maybe his coming out year. If you haven't heard of him yet, for a lot of people, I know football heads like us know about him, but a lot of people still don't know about Drew Mestamaker. And I think he's going to make a name for himself in the Big 12 conference this season. They may not win it, fellas, but I think their offense is going to put on shows and they can creep up. We got them at 9. At their ceiling, they can be a top 4 to 5 team.
Yeah, man, I can't agree with you enough, man. I've been anticipating this Oklahoma State Cowboys team to get back and be that team that's putting on like we used to seeing. You know, when you go to that, you see all that bedlam, all this different stuff that goes down. You know, when the stadium is jumping and rocking. Mestamaker is one of my guys. I've been watching him and seeing him come into this program. I think it's something to see. I'm gonna call him Drew Messy. He's gonna make more messes this season in the Big 12 than a little bit, and I think he's gonna put this team back where it needs to be. When you have a quarterback as your leader, and we know what he brings to the table, and like you said, Hawkins, a running back that's gonna get out there, not only run the ball, he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. He blocks tremendous. And he reminds me of a Travion Henderson out of Ohio State when he blocks. A lot of people will mistake what you say. Go watch how Hawkins blocks on those passing downs. Watch what he does and watch his eyesight, his vision, and what he does after he makes that block. I think this is going to be a tandem to see in the Big 12 this year. Mestamaker, Hawkins out of that backfield and just overall in this conference. I think with a lot of teams trying to find themselves, I think the Oklahoma State Cowboys know what they've brought in and is ready to make an impact in this Big 12 this season.
Yeah, and before you go, Rob, let me just mention they also brought Wyatt Young along with them, who finished whatever over 1,200 yards last season and 10 touchdowns with 70 catches. So he'll be a major target in that offense in the Big 12, and I expect him to put up similar numbers.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this Oklahoma State team because I feel like they got a coach that understands the recruiting landscape down there, down south in that Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia area. I think he's going to do really, really well. I think the problem with Oklahoma State in the last couple of years is Gundy just wasn't buying into the landscape of the new college football. But I think the coach that they have now, he understands that, and he's going to take full advantage of that because I feel like Oklahoma State is a better destination than Baylor. I feel like Oklahoma State is a better destination than SMU. I feel like Oklahoma State is a better destination than TCU. So they got a chance to really be right there in the thick of things, right below your Texas A&M, your Texas Tech, and your Oklahoma in that region of the country when it comes to getting some of these players that are looking for a home to go to. So hopefully he can get that thing turned around and they won't be the bottom dweller like they have been the last 2 seasons. So far, we went through the first bottom half of the conference. We got Colorado at 16, Kansas at 15, UCF at 14, Iowa State at 13, Cincinnati at 12, Arizona State at 11, Baylor at 10, and we had, oh, let me get it. And we had Cincinnati at 9. We're going to the top half of the conference and how we had them ranked. We got number 8, West Virginia. Mossberg, we'll start with you. What do you like about this West Virginia team? They get their old coach back. What do you think they're going to do this season?
I'm really interested in Cam Cook. I wonder if Cam Cook, one of Rich Rodriguez's former guys, and Parlay Poe, shout out to him for putting this on earlier in the season when Jacksonville State was playing where Cam Cook came from and was putting on a show and what he was doing elite in his rushing game. So for him to do what he did there, I'm looking at him to turn his program around. And can he do it first off being that physical running back that he have been? I think he can. And that's going to be what I'm looking at. Can he do that and be the richest for Rich Rodriguez over in West Virginia and getting the Mountaineers back on top respectively now in this Big 12 conference? And it's been a while, but we need to see them back and alive, like when they had Tavon Austin, Pat White, all those guys. And, there's so many more that we can name.
Yes, West Virginia, to me, fellas, this is one of the most intriguing teams in the Big 12. I believe that if their defense can just be average, man, I really believe in Rich Rodriguez and what he can do with these pieces. Mossberg mentioned Cam Cook, a guy who came from Jackson State and led the nation in rushing last season. He's going to be a pivotal piece in this Rich Rod offense, a guy who can run the ball in those zone schemes, set you up with the RPO and catch passes out of the backfield. So he's a perfect fit for Rich Rodriguez in this West Virginia offense. And I'm gonna tell y'all right now, if Michael Hawkins, the new quarterback, is good, which he should be good in this type of offense, a guy who can hurt you with his legs. Of course, we know West Virginia wants to run their quarterbacks, and a guy who can make plays downfield. I feel like this offense is all going to be dictated by those two players, Cam Cook and Michael Hawkins Jr. That defense just needs to be average, and West Virginia, to me, could be a surprise team in the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this West Virginia team as well. This was a team that they could drop 30 or 40 on you every week, but guess what? They was giving up 30, 40, or 50 at the same time. I think if they could get this defense fixed, I really like Michael Hawkins. I know when he played Texas as a true freshman, he got thrown into the fire and Texas put it on him. But I think he understands the game. He's a grown up now. He's been in college football, I believe, for 4 years now. I'm really expecting for Michael Hawkins Jr. to be a lot better than what he was as a true freshman. I think he's in the perfect system with Rich Rod to do the things that Rich Rod likes to do. And I think he has some weapons around him. I'm really looking forward to seeing this guy go. And I think this West Virginia team, we got them in the top half. I think they can get in the top 5 if they can play some good, solid defense. And I think Rich Rod understands the game. He'll be able to manage it well enough that he can take his foot off the gas and milk some clock in order to preserve some of these victories. I'm counting on him to do that, and I'm counting on Michael Hawkins and the talent around him to make some plays. And I think that this West Virginia team could definitely stay in the top half, but I can see them getting in the top 5 in this conference.
I agree.
At number 7, I believe this is the most experienced quarterback in this conference. At number 7, we got Kansas State and Avery Johnson. We're going to start with you, Mossberg. How do you feel about this Kansas State team?
Question is, what is this Kansas State team going to do? Avery Johnson is special. I actually like watching this kid, but it's what are we going to see on that defensive side of the ball for Kansas State? You know, another team we had last year when we came into this Big 12 ranking, it's like this year we're seeing some teams move up and some teams drop. This Kansas State team still in the middle of the pack. I think they just a couple spots out of where we had them last year. So for me, can Avery Johnson lead these hungry Wildcats to the promised land? And the promised land for me is an 8-9 win season, respectively, with a winning record in the Big 12. So for me, it's how impressive can this Kansas State defensive side of the football be with Avery Johnson being so special of a talent on the offensive side. And this Big 12 is loaded with quite a few quarterbacks. I think that's under the radar and their abilities of what they could do. But I think this would be a season that they had to put on so we could really see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State is right where I think they belong. I think they're middle of the pack type team in the Big 12. But I mean, Avery Johnson could surprise us. I really like the addition of Colin Klein. I know we've heard SEC Sean talk about Colin Klein coming from A&M to Kansas State now. I think he's going to do well or be good for Avery Johnson and his style of play, a quarterback that can hurt you with his legs. Definitely. And if any quarterback can get you a game, it's Avery Johnson, man. He got a lot of experience, like Rob mentioned or Mossberg mentioned earlier. So I can see Kansas State being the middle of the pack team, but if anybody can put their team on their shoulders this year, I would bet on Avery Johnson.
Yeah, for me, with this Kansas State team, can they get back to being tough in the trenches like they were in the past? Because I think if they could do that, and they can stay stout there and they can get some guys on the perimeter to help Avery Johnson out in the pass game, everything else will develop. If they can run the ball inside zone, outside zone, with the possibility of Avery Johnson going out the back door on teams, they can be really, really dynamic offensively. Can Colin Klein bring the kind of style of play that he likes to play? And can that defensive front for Kansas State be like they were in the past? We know they're not going to be super uber talented on the outside with their safeties like they used to be, but they can at least be tough enough in the trenches to where they can hold teams down from running the ball down their throat. If they're able to do that and get stout up front in those trenches, I can see this Kansas State team being right there where we got them placed at number 7.
Yeah, crazy thing. I had them exactly at 7 in my rankings, and how we had it 7, 8, 9, 10. With Kansas State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Baylor. I mean, it just shows how good this conference really is. You know, think about last year to this year. Oklahoma State was 1-11 in a Big 12, and you go from that bottom feeder, and now you up in the higher echelon of this conference and could possibly be even higher. So I think it just goes to show what a year's difference, like we spoke on it and even previous college football talks, what a year's difference could be. For some teams, the portal coaching changes, that buyout and that hot seat is something that's going to be something to look at as well this season.
Next up, we place number 6. We place TCU. We're going to start with you post game. How do you feel about TCU, and what direction do you think this team is going to go? Are they going to go higher than 6, or do you feel like they're going to fall further down?
Yeah, I mean, I think TCU is placed exactly where they need to be. I'm interested to see this transfer quarterback from Harvard they got now, Jaden Craig. Harvard. you got to be intelligent to be playing football at Harvard. So they get this guy. I'm intrigued. I'm looking forward to looking to seeing him play football. So other than that, man, I think that TCU they'll be right where we have them between their range of outcome to me will be 6 to 10.
I'm really interested in this team, TCU. My guy was there. He's not there. He's over with Sig in another conference. Big money. We know what Hoover doing. I'm really interested. Like Poe said, you coming from Harvard, Craig. We know you great with the mental. We want to see it on this football field now. Just me, TCU is a team I've always watched. I've always liked their quarterbacks because they've had one of those guys, Andy Dalton, come to my Cincinnati Bengals, and he's done some things in getting us to the playoffs for a few seasons. So it's not like they don't have the ability to get that quarterback what he needs. He's coming in with the fine tune of a brain that he already has. So if he could put those things together and put his skill together for this program, I think we could see something that we didn't see fairly myself for TCU this year because I have them ranked lower than what we have them based on a lot of things happening with them losing Hoover and coming in with inexperience. But, like Poe said, you're not experienced when you come in with the ability and the knowledge and that type of brain from Harvard. We know what that type of school brings out, man, but the best of them.
Yeah, I really like TCU's coach. I feel like he understands the landscape of recruiting down there in the state of Texas. And the reason why I got them higher than the teams that are behind them is because I feel like he has a better situation than those teams in terms of being able to get some of the better recruits that are leftovers in that area. So I think that TCU could be a really good football team in terms of where they're positioned at. Do I think they can get higher than six or five or six? I don't think so, not in this conference this year. But I think they're going to be right around that area where they are between 6 and 8. Hopefully, they can play better defense as well, and they'll be able to get some of those offensive guys going this year. They were able to put up a lot of points with Hoover, but with a new guy coming in out of Harvard, will they still be able to do that same thing? Like post game said, he's got to be smart if he went to Harvard. Will he be able to read the defenses well enough in the Big 12, a conference that you can put up a lot of points in, but can they also stop some teams and outscore them? So
Nah.
hopefully they can do that. I'm looking forward to watching this team this year and see if they're able to do so. At number 5, we put the Utah Utes there. They lost their head coach to Michigan. What's your thoughts on Utah? We're going to start with you, Mossberg. And where do you see them going, up or down from 5?
This Utah team, I had at 4. For me, I didn't do the toughest and most accurate research. I think like when it come to players for me, but the thing that stood out for me was the toughest schedule. I thought they had a fairly tough schedule in this Big 12, but seeing where they were last year, 11-2, right there, taking that loss, I believe, to BYU and the other, I forget the other loss they had. They were right there, prime for the championship. So I think coming into this season, I respect that and think they can only improve on that. Knowing what Texas Tech is going through, I think this top 4, top 5 for this Big 12, this where it could get really scary because I think it's anybody's football game. Whoever's playing the best 3, 4 downs any given afternoon, late night in the evening, I think could come down and win this conference as well.
Yeah, it all centers around Devon Dampier. I know, as Rob mentioned, they lost their head coach. That coach has been at Utah forever. So we'll see how the new coach fares. I do believe Utah will be a solid team. I think their defense is going to be one of the better defenses in the conference. Definitely not the country, but definitely in the conference. And they'll play solid, hard nosed, gritty defense. But the key on offense is going to be Devon Dampier. I'm interested to see how they kind of retool on that offensive line. They had two first round picks in this year's NFL draft. So it'd be interesting to see how well that offensive line plays without those guys. But I think Devon Dampier is going to continue to be a dude, and Utah is going he going to upset they going to upset some teams and they going to lose to some teams. But I think they properly ranked in our ranking. I would have them 5 or 4.
Yeah, I feel like they was 4 or 5 as well. 5 is a good position for them. I feel like they're in a position where they're going to always be able to get some of those thick Samoan players to either play on their defensive line or their offensive line. That has been a staple at Utah and BYU for decades, probably even centuries. I feel like they're always going to be able to be good in their trenches, and they're going to be able to get some players to come and play at Utah. Utah has been a good football program for decades. Back when they had Urban Meyer and on to Cal Whittingham, they've always been a good organization. I really like Utah, and I think that they got an opportunity to be right there at 5, possibly even at number 4. At number 4, we got Arizona. What do y'all think about Arizona? They got one of the more experienced quarterbacks as well in this conference. We're going to start with you post game. How do you feel about Arizona at number 4?
I feel really good about Arizona this season. It all starts, we all know, with Noah Fafita and his experience as a starting quarterback. More really, probably now that I think about it, the best quarterback in the Big 12. I think he has a strong case for that title, and I think he's going to continue to have a great year. Look, Arizona brings back a lot of starters on offense and a lot of experience on that offense. I know they went to the transfer portal and got a few pieces on defense, but they bring back a lot of experience on their defensive side of the ball as well. So Arizona at 4, which I'm fine with, but this is a team. If we talk about a team sneaking and winning the Big 12 conference, if there's ever a team, I think is Arizona.
For me, I'm looking at, like you said, Post. I like that on Fafita because when you think about Kennedy on the opposite side on the defensive ball, him being able to get after that quarterback and make sure that him and that defense is doing what they need to do. I think this is Geo Richardson's breakout season coming in the slot in Arizona. We know Arizona throws across the middle. We know Fafita could pretty much make any pass in college football that you put him under center to make. I think that's something I'm looking for. Will this offense get to an explosive side of the football this season and catch another level? That's my question for Arizona and the abilities of Fafita. Like you said, he is one of the best quarterbacks in this Big 12, if you really think about it. If they could go to another echelon in this offense, Chase Kennedy playing lights out defensively, and like you said, they return so much. I think this Arizona team is still not finished with where they started. They dealt with a lot of injuries last year, so I think that halt some of the games that they lost, and they were close. So Arizona definitely, I had them right behind Utah. I had that 4 or 5 myself. On the strength, I just picked Utah, putting them ahead because of those games last year. But for me, I'm looking at that game in Provo, and I'm looking at that rematch at home, Utah. Those are the two big games for Arizona for me this year. If they win either of those games, I think that's going to be something to see because they could possibly be a one-loss team. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Fafita this year. I think he got a lot of weapons around him to be really, really good. But can their defense get back to playing good football like they played 2 years ago when we seen them take advantage of Oklahoma in that bowl game? I think they intercepted their quarterback maybe 3 to 5 times in that game. Their defensive secondary was really, really elite that year. Can they get back to that? If they can get back to that, I think they will be right there at number 4 at the end of the year, somewhere around in that area, 3, 4, 5. But it's going to depend on their defense. Can they get back to playing good defensive football like they played 2 years ago? And I think this Arizona team behind Fafita can be really, really dynamic and possibly be playing for a Big 12 championship at the end of the season.
Real
At
quick,
number 3, oh, go ahead.
my bad to cut you off. I was gonna say real quick. Watch Tyree Boss transfer come over from Miami. When you mention that secondary flying and being like that Arizona secondary, I think that transfer with his length and his ability, the athleticism and his speed, I think he'll be a name that be definitely drafted in the coming years on Sunday. But if they're flying in that secondary, that'll be a name to watch out for.
Yeah. Let's look at number 3. We placed the Houston Cougars there, but Houston was a team that, out of all of our brackets, I mean, all of our predictions, they were in the top slot on at least one or two different uh, uh, boards, and then they were 2 and 3 on some of them too. They find themselves at number 3 from the total calculation. Let's start with you, Mossberg. How do you feel about this Houston team? And do you think they can be the eventual Big 10 champions? I mean, Big 12 champions at the end of it?
Makai Hughes. You got Makai Hughes, Amari Thomas. I think this Houston team post he really hit me on to a lot of what they've been doing. I think this Houston team, when I was really looking at the rankings, they're loaded. They've returned a lot. I think they kind of remind me of that Lamar Jackson team a few years back when they just had a load of offense, but they had a defense to bite back. And I think they have a stronger defense this year. I think Houston is going to be an elite team. They could possibly go undefeated. A lot of these teams in the Big 12 are playing key games against each other. In week 3 at Texas Tech, if this Houston team wins at Texas Tech, Houston just may win the Big 12 because that's going to be the game to me. I think that shows, even though it's early, and I know we talk about early season games and late season games, you got to think of a team like Houston and where they've been at these past few years. They get a game like that, that could be a game win on the road that pushes them through the season and more. That's the type of win that could be for a university and a team like Houston going forward throughout the season. So I just think they're a scary team in this Big 12 this year.
Yeah, Rob, I'm curious to know those rankings that had Houston won, were those people from Texas?
Yes.
I got them at 2.
No, but in all seriousness, fellas, I really like this Houston team. I think they're going to be big time this year, and yes, I do believe three is a great ranking for them. I could see them winning the Big 12 as well. I don't personally have them winning the Big 12, but I definitely think that's in the range of outcomes. When you talk about Noah Fafita possibly being the best quarterback in the Big 12, there's a guy down in Houston named Connor Wegman who can challenge him for that spot this upcoming season with the weapons he has at his disposal. I'm looking for Houston to be solid on defense. Outside of Texas Tech, maybe BYU, I don't think there's any elite defenses in the Big 12, but I mean, they can be solid enough to win ball games in the Big 12. That's 100%. But I think Connor Wegman, Omari Thomas, Makai Hughes, like Mossberg mentioned, I think they're going to be in for a huge season in the Big 12. And I definitely expect them to be one of the better offenses in this conference as well.
I'm gonna tell you this: if you got to travel to Houston to play this Houston Cougars team, you better be ready to play. Because if you got to travel there and play them, you're gonna be in for it because they got weapons all over the place offensively. They got a seasoned veteran quarterback in Connor Wegman. I feel like this Houston team is in a position that if they could just get past Texas Tech, they could be in the driver's seat in terms of being able to make it as the other team or one of the two teams that will play in this conference championship. I think they have a very good chance of doing that. They're going to have to travel to the place where they throw tortillas relentlessly nonstop. If they can weather that storm, this Houston team could definitely be in the Big 12 championship as long as they limit their injuries and they can play well at home. They're going to be in a good position. I really like this Houston team. I think I had them third, ranked third on my board. I'm pretty sure most of us had them right around in that area. Hopefully they can stick and stay there, but I could definitely see them winning the Big 12 if the chips fall the way they need to. At number two, we got the Texas Tech Red Raiders. We're going to start with you post game. Do you think this Texas Tech team is two on our board because Brandon Sorsby will not be their quarterback this year? Or do you feel like BYU, who we got at number one, is just a better team than Texas Tech?
Well, the only way we're going to figure that out is if they meet in the Big 12 championship because they don't play each other in the regular season, I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, I the interesting thing to me when I think about Texas Tech, and I know they'll have Will Hammond at quarterback this year, possibly starting at quarterback for the team. But how does the Brandon Sorsby issue affect that locker room, or does it affect it at all? That's a key for me. That's something I want to see. Can this team still play well, or are they just going to have a hangover, a Brandon Sorsby hangover, and possibly have a down year? Now, a down year for them, maybe just missing the playoffs, maybe finishing second or third in the Big 12. But they have a lot of talent on defense. They went to the transfer portal, reloaded that defensive line with a lot of talent. We know their linebackers are going to be really good. How good will Will Hammond be at the quarterback position? This is a really interesting team to keep your eye on this season for all the things that I just mentioned. But second is good for me. Second or third, I like BYU a little bit better this season, and I know we'll get to them.
Yes, sir. I can't disagree in any way. I'm looking forward to the same thing, seeing if there's a definite hangover from, the Sorsby situation, or will there be just added push, added physical toughness. Will Ham for me, I really looked at this guy. Check this guy's stats out. It's not too many games that he played that make me think about the 25 game rule. I know it's so young, but when I thought about the 25 game rule, I said, let me check out the career. If he could put on games, and I looked at two games, they were big games in a young career, 13-16 against a Utah team at Utah, 8 rushes, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns. You get the win, 34-10, and that's at Utah. And then you play at Arizona State, and you go 22 for 37 for 167 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and you have 15 rushes for 47 yards, and you lost 26-22. So did you go into this offseason knowing that the possibility of you coming in, or are you ready now, with that quick adjustment? So for me, it's what's Cameron Dickey going to do. We know that two-headed monster and what they did, 20 touchdowns, almost 2,000 yards combined. What is Texas Tech going to be like after this? To me, it's a travesty feeling that you spent all this money to bring him in and now he's not playing. That's something that's going to be tough to deal with. It reminds me of, I don't take anything back from my '01 brotherhood, man, but it's like when Murph went to a different school when we played basketball in high school, and we talk about that still to this day. So it's like you think about some of those things, and it made me play tougher. And we went to the state, that following year. So what will this Texas Tech team do when something like that happens? Will they stand up, be tall, and be this number two ranking, or will they come and take over that Big 12 like they did last year and come back and win it again?
Yeah, I really feel like this Texas Tech team, because of the fact that this situation has already resolved itself, and there's months now between the time they're going to play and the time that they got this thing resolved. It's going to be more than enough time for them to get back that camaraderie that they need and to really rally around whoever their starting quarterback is going to be. I really like their coach, Joy McGuire. I think that's his name. I think he's a really good coach. He's really, really good at recruiting in the state of Texas. Cody Campbell has got his pocketbook or his wallet, rather. I go say pocketbook. He got his wallet wide open for this team.
Wide open,
And I
man.
think defensively, they're going to have a lot of weapons. I feel like offensively, they're going to be solid as long as they can establish the run. The thing that concerns me about this Texas Tech team, and I feel like this about a lot of teams across the country who have good rosters, who do not play a really competitive non-conference schedule, or at least one good non-conference game, it kind of sets you back for when you got to go get slapped in the mouth by one of those really good teams in your conference because you hadn't faced any adversity yet. You don't want your first bit of adversity to be against one of your conference foes. You want it to be early in the season so you can get that thing corrected because you've been there before. And I think that's what happened with Texas Tech last year in the playoffs. They did play a good game against Utah, but there was a lot of turnovers and stuff in that game by both sides that really made that game a little closer than it probably would have been. But I think Texas Tech has got to find a way to really get this thing together to where they can be prepared for if they do get to the championship game and win it, they're going to be ready for the college football playoffs. And I don't see anything on their schedule in the non-conference that is going to allow them to do that. But hopefully, in the conference play, they can have some competitive games so that they can have some adversity to be challenged with, so that they can be ready for that and not have a goose egg like they did last year. And the number one team that we think will win the Big 12 is the BYU Cougars. We're going to start with you, Mossberg. How do you feel about this BYU team? Is it hands down the best team in this conference, or do you think they're going to have some real competitive games down the stretch?
Man, shout out to LJ Martin, man. This BYU team, I think, Sataki, the coach, shout out to him grinding and getting this program, to where when you think of Provo, you know you coming and it's going to be tough. I look forward to when it's at Provo on college game day, seeing everything that's going on. But LJ Martin, Walker Lyons, transfer coming in from USC. Then you got JoJo Phillips, and then you got Kyler Casper, the transfer coming in from Oregon. But Bachmeyer has everything he asked for coming into a 2026 season. And we know what the physical guys up front going to do. They've returned and they're ready to push for this Big 12 championship. I think this is the year BYU take reins at a Big 12. And it reminds me of how Gonzaga was always there. And then when they got there, they continue to be there. It continue to bring in players. And I think we're starting to see this from BYU. And I started watching this team, and it's not going to stay away from me. I've watched them in years past. But when they got that AJ DeBance, the number one overall player, who is now with the Washington Wizards with the number one pick, it's just been a different thing going on in Provo. So I think it continues, and I think LJ Martin is a leader of this team with the way he runs the ball behind that quarterback who they have as a leader in Bachmeyer. So I think LJ Martin in for a big season, and he doubts all the naysayers. And I'm going to go ahead and give him 1,300 plus this 2026 college football season.
Yeah, Moss, I really like BYU myself. LJ, first of all, I believe BYU is going to have the best offense in the comp or the best offensive line in the conference. With that, add that to the fact that they have LJ Martin, who's an absolute stud at the running back position. I personally think he's going to be the best running back in the Big 12. I can also see Cook at West V, but for my money, it's going to be LJ Martin. Uh, and then Bear Bachmeyer taking a big step this season. I think he's going to be really good at the quarterback position. BYU always plays gritty, solid defense. Their defense won't be better than Tech's, I don't believe, but they'll be right there. Definitely better than the other defenses in the Big 12. Maybe Utah, we'll see. But I like BYU, and they have a perfect chance to win the Big 12 this season. I know Notre Dame comes to town, but we're talking about the Big 12 conference. So I think BYU is going to finish first this season.
Yeah, I really like this BYU team. I had them first on my board in terms of being the best team in this in the Big 12. But it probably was more because Sorsby wasn't going to be the quarterback at Tech. I feel like Sorsby, with the experience that he had, will probably be able to lead this team better than who their next quarterback is going to be. But this BYU team was going to be right there. I feel like they were going to be the two that was going to play in the conference championship. Now I think it's just going to be BYU and Houston. So hopefully I get that prayer answered. But I feel like this BYU team, the coach staying, the fan base, the boosters, the people with the money, the Mormons, they all said, listen, Siaki, you can stay put because we're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you have a good roster. They got a nucleus of people who love to come to BYU and play ball. They got everything set up in the right manner for BYU to be good as long as that coach stays there. And if he doesn't stay there much longer, they're going to find somebody else to fill his shoes because I think this BYU team is going to be good. This BYU organization is good. They got bread. They're going to be able to compete in this NIL era. And I feel like BYU is going to be right up there in the top of the Big 12 going forward because I feel like they're going to always be able to get the kind of guys that they want that are gritty, that want to bring their lunch pail to work every day and get the job done. They got the best running back in the conference. I think when it comes to that fourth quarter and they got to close out games, they got the best in the business probably in this conference to close out games with LJ Martin. I feel like BYU is the team to beat in this conference, and I think that's why, as the WTP Sports Dudes, we got them ranked number one in the preseason in this conference. Anything else y'all want to add about college football, the Big 12, or any other sports topic before we go?
Oh man, anything from you, Post? My back. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm happy to see that Coach Prime is healthy and in good spirits and he's ready to lead his team. So shout out to Prime, man.
Totally agree, man. Same here. For me, I'm just interested to see what this Big 12 is going to be like this year. Seeing BYU at the top of the Big 12. Like you said, LJ Martin, I think he doesn't get enough respect. And I'm going to say that. I don't think he does get enough respect if we really think about the running back position and think of what he's brought to this BYU university and football team. So I'm definitely looking forward to his season. I wouldn't be surprised if he's sitting down in a seat in New York. I think he's really that good, and he could really be one of those guys in that seat. So I'm just excited to see where BYU, what they does this year, and possibly not be a team that's looking to try to get into the playoff when it comes to that power five and all the fuss and huff. They're already in that playoff with what they do.
Yeah, I really like the way this conference is set up. I think for the last couple of years we've seen some really competitive games in this conference. I feel like the Big 12 is one of those conferences where we know from the past couple of years it's been a different champion. If you go back and look outside of Oklahoma, it's always been a different champion. And we haven't seen that across the country like we've seen it in the Big 12. I really feel like this conference is trying to make some noise. They're trying not to get left out of all of the negotiations that are going to take place. I'm looking forward to seeing them play this year. Everybody out there, make sure you hit the like button. You subscribe to all the channels that's scrolling across the bottom. Y'all, we talked about a lot of good quarterbacks in this conference. We're doing the Big 12 today. Next Tuesday, we'll be doing the ACC. We'll be talking about some more great quarterbacks. If you think about the 68 power four quarterbacks that are going to start the season and add in CJ Carr from the independent Notre Dame team, you got 69 quarterbacks. Of those 69 quarterbacks, man, I would not be surprised if 35 of those dudes get drafted in next year's draft, because this quarterback year is going to be unfreaking believable. Tune in next week or next Tuesday when we talk about the ACC. Tune in to us Thursday when our man Post Game will be hosting the show on Thursday. If we don't have anything else, we're going to get up out of here. Everybody enjoy the rest of their evening, and we'll see y'all bright and early tomorrow. Or no, not bright and early. Wednesday, my man Mossberg will be here Wednesday night at 7:45, and then we'll get post game on Thursday. So that's back to back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We see y'all soon.
We got y'all with the free agency. Peace.
Peace.